for the panel to focus on. In terms of the background, a process was initiated to update the policy framework, that being the white paper on tourism development and promotion in South Africa. It was approved at the beginning of democracy, really, in 1996. And to do this, a panel was appointed to lead the process with the members that have been, some of whom are in the meeting, but just for purposes of the record, it's Professor Diane Abrahams, Mr. Sylvester Chauke, Advocate Mujanko Gumbi, Dr. Bongani Ngolunga, who chairs the panel, Ms. Busisiwe Khadebe, Ms. Machachi Ramawela, and Mr. Michael Tolman. So this panel then commenced its work late last year in November, and then undertook various activities which we will be discussing today. In terms of the policy ecosystem that guides tourism, it's important just to highlight this because sometimes when we make the statement that the white paper has not been updated for quite some time, we tend to forget that in the meantime, there were other policy tools that were in fact put into place and implemented, and plans identified, and some progress in fact achieved. So we have the white paper, of course, as the overarching one, supported at an overall country level by the National Tourism Sector Strategy, which is the NTSS. It was initially finalized in 2011, just after the Department of Tourism was established as a standalone department, and it was subsequently reviewed in 2017. So the strategy provides quite a lot of detail about how the policy needs to be implemented. It identifies pillars for the strategy, and it also identifies actions and allocates responsibilities to various partners within the sector, bearing in mind that it's a sector strategy, not a departmental strategy. So a lot of partners are in fact responsible for delivery on the strategy. We have supporting strategies as well, such as the tourism sector human resources strategy. We have as well the domestic tourism strategy and other strategies that are then sub-strategies, if you like, supporting the NTSS. We have the Act, which is the legislation, which was finalized in 2014. A process of amendment was initiated in 2019. And we just highlight this because some of the proposals that were made in that bill obviously then partly inform what areas the panel needed to look at as well. We now very recently have the Tourism Sector Recovery Plan, which is a direct response to the COVID-19 pandemic and the associated impacts. And of course, we have the National Development Plan, which is the overall economic strategy guiding economic development, broadly speaking, bearing in mind that tourism is an economic sector and it's a sector that is expected to contribute to development. We also have the Economic Reconstruction and Recovery Plan, which has partly guided the Tourism Sector Recovery Plan. So all of these instruments combined then provide a direction, if you like, for what policies and strategies should be implemented for the ultimate goal of growing the tourism sector, and of course, currently recovering the sector to begin with. In terms of the approach that was undertaken, I think Chair has partly covered this. The initial work was to look at the white paper itself, remind the panel as to what the white paper's vision was, what it looked to do to promote tourism development. And then there was an identification of areas of focus or thematic areas that needed to be addressed in the updated policy. And then some initial stakeholder consultations were done with organized groups. Not all of them are, in fact, indicated there, but just the main ones that were consulted, because some of the stakeholders were consulted by the panel as a whole, and others were consulted by individual panel members. So it was slightly broader than is reflected on that slide, but those were the key ones. The panel further received written comments from stakeholder groups and finalized a preliminary analysis as to what areas of concern, what areas were of concern to stakeholders and what areas needed attention of the panel. So having done this work, then the panel's conclusion at the time was that quite a lot of the areas in the 96 white paper largely remain relevant and therefore need to be carried over into the new policy, updated policy. Some areas still require major interventions in the current context, although some progress has been made in others. Tourism safety and security was one particular area that was identified as requiring major intervention. The COVID-19 pandemic, of course, a new problem, if you like, that has led to quite a focus on health considerations. And this is one of the observations that then informed the panel's work. There were new policy areas that were also identified as an observation, such as economic digital transformation, the increasing need by travelers for I'm not sure if I should continue, Chair.
Chair, please call order.
Hello. Can everyone mute, please? We're having this hello. There are some interruptions. There are people who did not mute their microphones. Please mute your microphones.
Chairperson, it is not Zuko. You must call the person out who it is.
No, Zuko, please, mute yourself.
Okay, thank you, Chair. There were also areas that were identified by the panel that had not been specifically addressed by the white paper, such as rural tourism. The panel then identified thematic areas or the kind of pillars that the process needed to focus on. Can just have the previous slide, please. Great. Okay, so a total of 7 thematic areas were identified by the panel to kind of focus the review process. The first one, of course, being growing the sector, which is really the overall theme, if you like, covering quite a number of areas, including the supply side issues, supply and demand, both the domestic, the regional, as well as the international space of tourism, and also looking at what barriers could be identified that were hindering the growth of the sector, so that these could then be addressed in the updated policy. The transformation of the sector was the next theme, looking at what had been the state of play in terms of the sector codes, and looking at what more could be done in the updated policy to really ramp up both our activities and the gains or the achievements really in terms of the marginalized groups within the sector, looking at the dimensions of race, youth, as well as gender. Adaptability was the other area of focus that was identified, remembering that looking back at 96, quite a lot of digital transformation has taken place, which requires then the updated policy to reflect on the adaptation that is required, partly informed by the fourth industrial revolution, as well as just general development within the context, including climate change, of which responsible tourism is a factor as well, coupled with sustainability. The next theme was to look at concurrent powers. In other words, look at how best tourism needed to be governed for the optimal amount of growth that we require. So looking at concurrent powers, how ideal are they? To what extent do they support the sector or in fact undermine the growth of the sector and so on? So looking at all of that, but also looking at the regional and continental as well as international cooperation. The next theme related to tourism, human resource development and employment creation, skills development, of course, being one of the core areas there, the empowerment of the youth, women, people with disabilities, as well as other groups that need empowerment. So a whole lot of proposals there were to be considered under the theme for the optimum, human resource development to support this growth of tourism that we require. Destination marketing, of course, was the other theme, looking at the best mix in terms of both the diversity and the balance of marketing, the roles and responsibilities, and what alignment was required between state agencies currently undertaking marketing. And then there are cross-cutting policy issues, what was clustered as cross-cutting policy issues. Safety and security being one, it is something that does undermine both in terms of reality and perception. It does undermine the growth of tourism. Transport issues, immigration issues, of course, to facilitate the travel, as well as looking at subsectors that are regulated somewhere, such as licensing. So out of the initial consultations, a couple of observations were made by the panel. So one of them being that, when the consultation was undertaken, the interventions that were identified were quite a broad range, ranging from administrative interventions, institutional arrangements, and regulatory interventions. This is an important observation because it then starts to cluster issues which do require the panel's direct attention and policy intervention, but also some of the issues in the end, the panel could decide that these are more administrative and should therefore be handled in an administrative fashion, which means that when the stakeholders then say, oh, but we raised this particular issue and we don't see it in the policy, we'd then be able to say, no, this one we categorized in this fashion and therefore we felt it does not necessarily belong to the policy review. There were others, of course, related to institutional arrangements. Regulatory interventions were proposed on the sharing economy, among others, of course. Compulsory grading was one area that came up. Reviewing the possible review of the procurement framework, a proposal on reviewing the TOMSA levy, both in terms of its collection as well as its distribution, remembering that at the moment only some tourism operators actually collect this levy. There was an interest by some stakeholders to establish or review the tourism institutional arrangements. A tourism risk committee for crisis management was one of the proposals. A specific SITA for tourism to oversee the skills development in this sector, just some of the structures that were identified for establishment. There was also a proposal around the definition of tourism and its subsectors, with a revised definition in respect of tourism guiding being suggested. The profiling of the tourism sector and its benefits at the highest level was highlighted, and the need for a whole of government approach. Those two were really identified as being critical to the growth of tourism. I think that the chair of the panel already highlighted how intertwined tourism is with other sectors. So the whole of government approach does become one of the critical areas of intervention and input. It was identified in the consultations. The clarification of roles and responsibilities by the different spheres of government was also highlighted as an area of intervention by the panel. And also some issues around regional and international cooperation were also raised. The curriculum of tourism and the certification regime was raised as an area of concern, with some proposals being made by stakeholders. Some admin issues that were highlighted included the delays in tourism licensing, the backlog there, and the administrative issues that are still being experienced even as we speak. The implementation of e-visas was also highlighted by stakeholders, and benchmarking South African tourism's performance against successful destinations was also one of the proposals. So looking at all of this then, the progress that has been made by the panel is that there was a review of these initial stakeholder inputs that I've just highlighted. There was then a comprehensive initial drafting and redrafting process, which outlines the preliminary proposals. The panel will then be presenting these proposals to the minister at the earliest opportunity. We know that the minister is still settling at the moment. Once the minister has considered the current draft, it will then be further refined, obviously incorporating the inputs from the minister, and then further consultations with the initial set of stakeholders, as Chair was indicating, will be done to basically give feedback and get further inputs from them. And then a wider range of tourism players as well will be consulted with the updated draft. And then all inputs will be processed, and then a further final, there's lots of final drafts in a process like this, but a further draft will then be developed. And then the formal administrative processes, including the government cluster consultation process, will thereafter be facilitated. And that chairperson of the portfolio committee is the presentation from the panel. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the presentation. So it seems like you've concluded your presentation as the panel. So
yes,
yes. Maybe if we can hear clarity-seeking questions from honorable members of the portfolio committee. I will start with Honorable Hannah Winkler.
Thank
Honorable
you,
Hannah.
Chairperson. Thank you. And thank you to the panel for your report back. My first question is, I don't see any addressing of funding by the various levels of government. And this is of particular concern, especially at a local government level. There's always a concern that tourism is essentially an unfunded mandate, despite the fact that it is a huge sector for job creation and needs to be supported at local government level. So has that been addressed? And then with regards to intergovernmental relations, I think that the process is quite disjointed. And I think that there needs to be a better synergy between the three levels of government, especially when it comes to sort of policy and implementation, and any programs. So I think that, yeah, there definitely needs to be an improvement in those relations and how that takes place. Then in terms of transformation, about sort of changing the tourism landscape and the policy proposals around that in the villages, townships and small dorpies. I think that we really need to understand what the proposals are, what the concerns are, and how this is going to be addressed in this review. Then I think the speaker did mention climate change as part of one of the thematics under the subsections. What stakeholders have been engaged with this, and how will this be included in the policy review? Then in terms of cross-cutting issues, I know that safety and security were one. What about also environmental degradation? So water pollution, environmental degradation. As we come out of COVID, you're going to see a huge demand for ecotourism, and especially in a country like South Africa, where the offering is based on natural heritage. We need to make sure that we are preserving and conserving our natural spaces. And with the huge amount of environmental degradation that's taking place now, we had the issue in Umhlanga in KwaZulu-Natal, where the chemical spill into the rivers, which closed off beaches. We've got the Wilson's Wharf Harbour, where you've got effluent from the city spilling into the harbour on a daily basis. It's really toxic. It's killing the marine life. It's chasing away business. And these are just two incidents that I quote now. There's the blue flag status of all the beaches in Durban and KwaZulu-Natal with E. coli levels that are off the charts. So these are really urgent and pressing matters that need to be addressed, especially if we're going to maintain our position as a world-leading destination in terms of ecotourism. All right, thank you. That's all from me.
Thank you very much, Honorable Winkler. Our next honorable member who will be posing a question is Honorable April Hay.
Thank you very much,
Honorable
Chairperson.
April?
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I think let me welcome the contribution that has been made. The presentation is absolutely is comprehensive, and I want to thank the team for putting it together. Chairperson, from my side, I'm not going to put a question. I've gone through the presentation. You see, tourism is one of those areas that has been hard hit, and every effort that is being made by the administration in order to revitalize tourism, specifically when we look at the small dorpies and the plan that they have brought there together. It is one thing that is inspiring to see that specific attention is being put to the rural areas, the small dorpies, and revitalizing the sector in specifically that area. So I want to support the report as it has been given. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable April. Sorry, the third speaker will be Honorable Gumbi Sanganani.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, and thank you very much to the presentation. And I know that in the presentation, obviously, when you're doing a policy review, you have a number of things which you go over quite broadly. So some of these might have slightly been answered, but I'm trying to get more depth of detail into some of these questions. So I've got 3 questions. The first question is something that I've spoken about in the portfolio committee before, is if we look at a destination such as Thailand, for instance, they've got a number of things which make them the world's #1 repeat destination. So obviously they've got the offering, they've got everything there that they've got the variety and they've got the weather, etc. But they've also got the cost of travel to go to Thailand, for instance, is incredibly low, from flights to accommodation and all of that, which makes it easy for international tourists. So what are we doing? What are we doing to significantly reduce that cost of traveling to South Africa or traveling within South Africa, of spending time in places of accommodation in South Africa? So specifically around the cost, what are those policy interventions and how are we going to improve that so that it's more affordable across the board for international and local tourists? The second question, which is around free grading, and I hope that I don't know if you mentioned this or not. I did get distracted at one point in time, but is there anything directly speaking to free grading? It is something that the entire portfolio committee has agreed to for a long period of time, and that's across all the different party lines. And even in agreeing to that, I think we felt that, or at least I felt that, the executive side, in terms of the minister, has been quite slow in actually implementing something which is a generally agreed upon policy by all of the representatives in Parliament. The last question that I have is CTOs. Have CTOs been left out of this kind of policy review process? I mean, I see Selga and all of them, but you know, what you have then is you have a situation whereby your local government structure is consulted in terms of your municipalities and those reps, but the real people who are dealing with the tourism businesses who are directly front-facing, I'm not sure if they become fully engaged. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Slanganan Kumbi. Our next speaker will be Honorable Lusizo Makubele.
Good morning, Chairperson. Good morning, colleagues and honorable members and members of the policy review panel. Honorable Chairperson, I do not have anything to be asking and to be adding, but once just to welcome the presentation and the report back to the portfolio committee on the policy review and the steps that have been taken and the work that has been done thus far. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Lusizo Makubele. The fifth speaker will be Honorable Pepani Mocheka.
Thank you, Acting Chair. Just for is Pepani Moteka. Okay, that's right. Okay. Chairperson, there are 2 key issues that we must address, and they must find a place in the policy of tourism. Number 1, if the panel have been following the meetings of the portfolio committee, they will find that the issue of developing tourism destinations and finding people from the villages, townships, and small towns is in the heart of the committee. So far we don't see any implementation. Maybe it's because there's no policy talking to it. You know, people want to comply. So if there's no policy that is instructing people to do things, they don't take that serious. So we want that to find a place in the policy, that there must be structures of tourism in the villages and in the townships, and we're not talking about the existing structures. The existing structures must be sustained, but we need new developed structures in the villages, in the townships. That's why we'll say transformation is happening in the tourism sector. And the other thing is funding. We want to see people from the villages being funded, because without funding, nothing will happen there. Tourism, tourism sector is more untransformed than many sectors. So that's why we are saying, let's fund people where they never had anything before. So the policy must also talk to that. And I think so far, Chairperson, if those things can find a place, we'll get somewhere, because we are on the third year now from 2019, but we can't find anything tangible that we can say. As a committee, we have pushed for this, and this is happening, more especially in the villages, townships, and small towns. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much. Our next honorable member is Honorable Sheila Xeko. Honorable Sheila Xeko. Okay, maybe she's getting herself ready. Honorable Mpushe. Okay. Honorable Muyeni. Honorable Thokozani Muyeni.
Thanks, Chairperson. I think I'm covered by Moteka about the village and town and small town. There is nothing which is talking about those, of which we need to get a policy on that. Then the panel will be dealing with something which we talk about as the committee.
Thank you very much, Honorable Muyeni. I also have to need to get some clarity questions here. Honorable members, my first question here is about the policies, which are, there is a difference, according to my understanding, of policy review and policy design. How many policies were designed, the new policies? When you design a new policy, how many policies were designed in the financial year of 2019 and 2020? And how many new policies were designed in the financial year of the year 2020 and 2021? Also, how long does it take for your department to design a policy, that policy ecosystem? You know, those steps. How long does it take for the department to design a policy? And also, how long for the department take to review the policy? And also, after how long do the departments review policies? Because tourism life changes from time to time, and therefore it requires the department to visit all the policies and see whether they are still relevant for the current situation. Do we still have the policies which are 10 years old without being reviewed? Hence, I'm now coming to financial year policy review. Because I also understand, like Honorable Hannah Winkler said, local government, we're coming from that background. We review policies, we used to review policies annually and check whether they are still relevant for the current situation. Tourism has been one of the struggling portfolios in the past years. And also, it not very long, but previously, I'm talking about the COVID-19, and also in some of the areas before COVID-19, there's been some few challenges of especially empowerment of those who were previously disadvantaged. Are the policies also aligned to funding of those previously disadvantaged communities, so that as we go forward, those organizations that are against empowerment of the previously disadvantaged communities must be able to see that the policy is aligned to that effect. Thank you very much. I would like the responses to come from the panel, please.
Thank you very much, Chairperson and members of the Portfolio Committee, for the comments and questions. With your permission, Chairperson, I would like to invite members of the panel present to address some of the questions. I do not know whether I can start with you, Advocate Gombi. There were issues of intergovernmental relations that were raised there. If you can address them, thank you.
So, sorry for that. Sorry, my apology. There is one question that I forgot to ask. I'll just take 1 minute. Coming to the intergovernmental policies, because sometimes you'll find that there are policies that are environmental policies, and tourism is also in the environment. So you may find that there are policies that are in the Department of Environment, in the Department of Sports, Arts and Culture, and also in the Department of Tourism. Is there any stage where all these departments sit together to share their policies which are common, or talking about common factors, so that you don't have clashing policies department by department with regards to the same things? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Advocate Gombi, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Good morning, honorable members, and thank you very much for giving us the opportunity to address you this morning. I will address the matters raised about the intergovernmental process. I am happy that members have realized that that process is a little disjointed. In the consultations that we have had, we have found that different departments and levels of government go out to external markets in a very disjointed manner, as a result of which we are not able to leverage on the offering that we have as a country. So in the policy, we are trying to address that very, very directly, to make sure that we all understand that South Africa is a unitary country. There are just functions that are shared by different levels of the state in terms of the constitution. It's a functional matter. It doesn't say that everybody must really do what they want. And so we are trying our best to find a response to that makes sure it's a whole of society response to tourism. I think one of the honorable members raised the issue of Thailand. Honorable Gumbi, we share the same name. Because Thailand's approach to tourism was an all-of-country approach. So you find, the travel agencies, the airlines, the attractions, the government, everybody is working together as a unit, which is why they are able to offer the kind of packages that they are offering. So that's what we are trying to take South Africa to that level. And I hope we will be able to do that with your assistance, members, because we understand it's a very sensitive matter in South Africa. When you keep saying, South Africa is a unitary state, can we therefore approach this matter in a unitary fashion? Thank you very much, Chair. I hope I have responded to that matter.
Thank you very much, Advocate Gumbi. If I may invite, through your permission, Chair, Ms. Ramawela to address quite a number of matters on transformation generally and also support to villages and small towns.
Thank you very much, our panel chairperson and the chairperson of the portfolio committee and the members of the portfolio committee. So I picked up the question that was asked by member Muteka, and I think there was also around the local government and the CTOs. So in terms of developing the question around, what is the policy saying from a developing tourism destination and funding development, we are addressing that matter extensively in the policy. During the engagement that we had as the panel, but as well as individually as the individual members of the panel, this point came very, very strongly to say that we need to strengthen the existing PE policy, for instance, to ensure that the substantive differences that are seen, but most importantly, the funding issue also came in. And so when we engage the Tourism Transformation Council as well, we also, extensive input came through in that regard. So we're addressing those issues very, very strongly. Hence, one of the examples that the chairperson mentioned is around, addressing the challenges at the peri-urban areas, because there is a separation. What happens in the urban areas, what happens in peri-urban areas, and what happens strictly in villages and small towns is showing very, very strongly within the policy with a lot of detail, which means that we are in touch with what it is that's happening on the ground. We are also addressing the issues around local government. The members are correct, to say that tourism doesn't happen necessarily in the abstract. Tourism happens at local level. So to the extent to which that local government structures are ready to be able to service the needs of the tourism trade and the traveler as well, it also shows prominently within the policy. And we do talk about the issue of structures, which Advocate Gumbi also spoke about earlier on. When the point around intergovernmental relations is not necessarily at the government level alone that we are addressing. The CTOs, the Community Tourism Organization, are very much part of the structural suggestions that have been made within the policy. So we have touched on those issues. Chairperson, thank you very much, our chair.
Thank you very much, Ms. Ramawela. With your permission, Chairperson, if I may ask Mr. Tolman also to come in.
Good morning. Okay. Good morning, honorable members, and thank you for the opportunity this morning to meet with you. Your comments have been very interesting to hear, and many of them have been addressed within our report. Just commenting on some of the questions that were raised around climate change, environmental degradation, other points. We did cover these in the committee. We looked at the United Nations Sustainable Goals and addressed these the 17 Sustainable Development Goals were included in our discussions and reviews. We also took into account that some of these items are covered both in our report and within the different departments. So, for example, if we look at policies around climate change and sustainable travel, some of these areas are specific to our sector and can be addressed by policies within the sector itself, but some are very much reliant upon other departments, and those are covered in the report. So other departments would be things like conservation conservation of our wildlife and our natural resources, and also our infrastructure. And so all of those come together and play an important part of tourism, and again flows back to our whole government approach to many of the things we've covered. So very pleased to hear some very relevant comments, and I do think we have them covered within the report. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tolman. If I may request Professor Abrahams, with your permission, Chairperson, also.
Thanks, Honourable Chair of the committee and members. I think most of the panelists have responded to the questions that were asked, but just to concur that the issues of the rural-urban divide and how to drive rural tourism has come up quite strongly in our consultations. The resourcing of tourism, I think the Honourable Winkler asked about that. That has also come up quite strongly, but both in terms of not only funding, but also in terms of capacity. So the skilling of people at the different levels dealing with tourism has also emerged in the consultations. The other issue I think that Honourable Gumbi raised was around affordability and access. That is also something we are addressing in the policy, which has also emerged quite strongly during the review process. So Chair, those are some of the issues that I just picked up and can add to the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Abrahams. Ms. Ngiti, there were some questions that were raised about the policy-making process inside the department. I do not know whether you can comment on those.
Okay, thank you, Chair, both of the panel and the portfolio committee. The funding, I think, of CTOs, at the moment, it is actually done through subnational government. Different provinces have got mechanisms by which they actually fund CTOs. So it basically differs from province to province, but it is currently provided for. But I think we take the point that maybe the panel also needs to look at this further. The issue of free grading was another one that I picked up. A bit of a complex one. At the moment, grading is almost free, if not free, to the smaller enterprises. There is a program that has been running for some time where the department actually subsidizes grading in respect of smaller and almost medium enterprises. But of course, like anything, when something is free to one party, the money comes from somewhere. So it does then have those long-term implications in terms of funding. Policies designed on a year-to-year basis. What we've the approach that we undertake, I think it was slightly highlighted at the beginning of the presentation, is that we look at policy as an ecosystem. You have the policy itself, and then you have the strategies. The policy is not as agile as the strategies, in the sense that you can't really update a policy too often, partly because it just, I mean, the process is long. It has got to be consultative by law. And the consultation process, in order for it to be meaningful, must be done properly. And we have found that that does take time. So the policy itself does not get reviewed regularly. But if you look at the ecosystem itself, the strategies do get updated regularly, and based, of course, on changes in the environment and stakeholder inputs. I'm not sure if there's anything else that I may have missed. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. I mean, perhaps if I can just add one issue on consultation. We have taken time just on the policy review process, partly because we thought we needed to consult quite extensively. Because I mean, if you look at the white paper that we currently have, I mean, as we have mentioned before, it's been there for more than 2 decades. I mean, so we are quite aware that the policy that will be developed out of this process may be there for quite some time. So we have had to think quite carefully, in a sense, about the issues that are before us. And also just being aware that we are contributing towards a policy development process, and for a policy that may be here for quite some time, which partly explains the extensive consultation process that we have gone through. COVID has created some problems a bit. I mean, they would have wanted perhaps even to consult even further, but you know, there were problems with the restrictions on movement. But we made a commitment to the stakeholders that we met towards the end of last year and at the beginning of this year that will come back and consult further on the proposals that we'll be coming up with. We, as we said in the presentation, we hope even to consult wider stakeholders in the tourism sector that we have not spoken to yet. And they include CSOs. I mean, I know one honorable member raised that issue. But I mean, the good thing about, in a sense, the second phase of consultation that we want to go through is that it would not just be a listening process alone. We'll also be going there with a set of proposals, I mean, just to make sure whether they cover all the issues that have been raised and to gather the views. I mean, one of the major consultations that we had, I mean, for instance, was on the MINMAC, where there were MECs in the economic class of government, both in provinces and in the national government. Just also inviting provinces, and I know Advocate Gombe has also consulted with provinces, with heads of tourism authorities in provinces. So the consultation is ongoing. And we want to reach out as many actors in the sector as possible so that whatever we propose to the minister will have taken into consideration all the views of stakeholders. But we thought we also just needed to check comparative international experience. I mean, because some of these issues that we are grappling with in South Africa, other countries are grappling with those issues too. I mean, it could involve issues of the cost of traveling, environment, new technologies. So we are quite hopeful that through this consultative policy review process that would make proposals that are well informed by experiences of actors who are involved in the sector, but also by experiences from policymakers. Thank you very much, Chair.
Sorry, I forgot to unmute. Yes, I'm saying thank you so much to the panel and for tourism policy and review. And also, we want to say to you, your presentation was quite informative, and there's a lot of things that we've learned from your department. And with that, I would like to release the panel so that we can continue with the rest of the agenda items. And thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you very much.
Chairperson.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, members.
Bye-bye, Dr. D.
Members.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Yes, thank you so much to all the members, and maybe continue with the rest of the agenda, please, honorable members. We are now moving to Mera Mawela, you can switch off yourself. Okay. We are now moving to the next item, which is the consideration of the draft.
Chamber.
Honorable Mieni, please mute your microphone. Thank you. We are now going to move to the consideration of the draft committee program for the third term of 2021. It will be done by Honorable Mr. Boltina. The program, please, Mr. Boltina.
Okay. Thank you, Acting Chair. Chair, here is the program that we are tabling before the committee so that it can be considered. We take it as a document that will take us through up to the end of this quarter, Chair. We have done this, or we are proposing these amendments, Chair, because when we came back on the 17th of August, we were told by Parliament that there were changes that were done by the Programming Committee of the National Assembly. When we look at the program that was placed before us, Chair, we noticed the three things in that program that they presented. One, we found that the September constituency period of the National Assembly that was there was removed. Then the second thing, we found also that the BRRR process has been compressed to October from 5 up to 15th. And then we also noticed that as well in that program that the medium-term budget policy statement is still reflected that it is on the 2nd of November 2021. So because the program we have developed before, we had to do some changes to that program of the Portfolio Committee. So this is what we have done, Chair. One, although this we have already done, if we look at item number 1, the 17th of August, we had that briefing from the Department of Tourism where they were briefing us on the last quarter of the 2020-2021 financial year. We have done that. Then if you look at item number 2, Chair, on the 24th of August, we also received that briefing from the South African Tourism where they were presenting to us the last quarter of that financial year to the committee. Then what we are busy doing currently, Chair, we are busy doing the report writing on those 2 quarters so that we can submit that report to Parliament as well, so that we know that we have dealt with all the quarters, quarter 1, quarter 2, quarter 3, quarter 4, all those quarters have been considered by the committee fully. Then today's meeting, the 31st of August, and then we have also invited this Ministerial Advisory Panel, Chair, just to talk to us on this matter, because it's a matter that the committee has indicated all along that whatever that is done, they want to have an input in that process. Then next week, Chair, the 7th of September, we are proposing that to the committee that we will be receiving that briefing from the tourism. Oh, sorry. Then we will be receiving that briefing from the briefing by the Tourism Transformation Council. This council chair acting chair was initially called as the Triple BEE Charter Council, but it has a new name now. So that's what we will be getting from them next week on the 7th. And then also we are proposing as well that on the 14th of September, the following Tuesday, we need also to have a briefing from the Department of Transport on tourism-related matters. Chair, we know that the stakeholders have raised a number of issues to the Portfolio Committee pertaining to licensing and all of those issues that are confronting, especially those who are in the transport, issues of cross-border and all of those issues. We are proposing that we need to invite them so that they can explain these issues to the committee, so that our sector, in whatever that they are doing, we make sure that it can enhance the tourism activity, Chairperson. Chair, we are also proposing that because this meeting, the committee has called it for a long time ago, but it has not been happening, so that we can also have an engagement with the Department of Sport, Arts and Culture, so that we can also talk about on tourism issues as well. Because in what we are doing, in one way or another, it impacts on them and on their side as well. What they are doing, it also impacts on tourism, Chair. So those are the issues that we want to engage them on. And then on the 28th, Chair, on the 28th, we are proposing here, Chair, that we also need to have an engagement with the Department of Home Affairs, so that we can also look into all these issues that relates to us as tourism, and also that relates to them as well. That is what we want to do on the 28th of September. Then what we are doing, Chair, all this work will lead us to the consolidation of our BRRR process towards in October. So we are proposing that on the 5th, because what Parliament has done, it has set aside the beginning of the 5th of October up to the 15th. I think it's a 2-week period that the committees must sit down to attend to those annual report of the portfolio committees. So we're proposing that on the 5th, and then we will be inviting the Office of the Auditor General and also plus the Department of Tourism, so that AG can give us their report on the audit outcome for the last financial year, and then the department will also give us their service delivery on what is happening. But from what we have seen from all these quarters, at least now the portfolio committee is on the know on what to expect. Chair, because there is time constraint here, we will be submitting to the Office of the House Chairperson so that they can grant us that Wednesday of the 6th of October, so that we can have the South African tourism as well, so that they can come and present their annual report from the committee. From there, thereafter, then the committee we will compile the draft report of the committee on the BRRR for 2021, and submit our recommendations. Because before these recommendations, before the medium term budget policy statement is tabled by the Minister of Finance, these reports must have been submitted to Parliament, Chairperson. so that when they do those allocation, and then we can see how, as tourism, we can benefit those. As members have already indicated, tourism is the one that has been hardest hit by this COVID pandemic. That's how far this program is, Chairperson. Then, Esbo, you can go back to number where it talks about the tourism, World Tourism Day. I think it's number yes, yeah, number 7. Chair, we have already been advised by the department that the World Tourism Day is scheduled for 27 September. For this year, it will be in Free State, in the area called Clarence. So it will be in Free State province. So we will see how the arrangement are on the side of the department. Then if we get the invitation, then we will see how that is managed so that members who are available can also be attending that day as well. Those are our proposal as a support team that we are submitting to the portfolio committee to consider, Chairperson, so that at least we can have a draft that can guide us up to the 2nd of November. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Mr. Boltina. And now members of the committee need to comment on the program so that we can be able to approve it. If there's any, there are no comments on the program. Anybody who wants to make an input towards the program? Okay, if not, it means the program is well taken by the members. Any mover for the adoption of the program? Honorable members? Honorable members, we need to approve the program for this quarter, for the 3rd quarter. Honorable Whip of the committee.
Honorable Chairperson, thank you. I had some technical glitches there. Can we then move that we work with this program as outlined to us by the Secretariat, and where amendments will need to be done in the future, we will agree on. But for now, let's settle for this program as a working program for the committee for this quarter.
Thank you very much, Honorable Makubele. I think we have, do we have any seconder towards this? Honorable Winkler?
Yes, I second. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. The program has been moved and seconded with the possible changes that may be proposed by members as we go by. Thank you very much. We're now moving to the last item, which is the announcements. Do we have any announcement, Mr. Boltina?
Acting Chair, can we also deal with the minutes, Honorable Chair, so that we don't have a backlog, Chair?
All right. Do we have the date of the minutes? Because I don't see the minutes.
Chairperson?
Member?
Yeah, I was going to say I have read through the minutes also, and when I propose that when the minutes are adopted, that we don't read the minutes verbatim, if we can just read the minutes out per meeting and then have a mover and someone to second.
Yes, it's always like that. We don't read them in the meeting because we receive them before the meeting can sit, which I agree with you, Honorable April. Do we have any mover and a seconder, please?
Oh, okay, Chair. Chairperson, the minutes that we have, the first set of minutes are the minutes of the 1st of June, 2021. a meeting that the committee have with the banking sector, Chairperson. So we are tabling those minutes for the committee to consider and approve, Chair. We will appreciate. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. The set of minutes. Yes, Honorable Oprah.
I move for the adoption of those minutes, Chair, as a true
Any
reflection.
seconder? Anyone seconding?
Chairperson,
Honorable
Honorable.
Mieni, do second. Honorable Mieni.
Oh, thank you very much, Honorable Mieni. And the second set of minutes, on Mr. Boltino.
Okay, Chair. The second set of minutes, Chairperson, are the minutes of the 17th of October, a meeting of the Portfolio Committee with the Department of Tourism on the fourth quarter performance.
Thank you very much. Any mover for the adoption of the minutes?
Chairperson, I move for the adoption of the minutes as a true reflection of what has transpired in the meeting.
Thank you very much, Honorable April. Any seconder?
Honorable Makubela, seconds.
Thank you very much, Honorable Makubela. Do you have any other set, or that's all, Mr. Boltino?
The third, Chairperson, the third and the last set, Chair, is the minutes of the Portfolio Committee with the South African Tourism on the fourth quarter performance report, Chairperson. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Any mover for the adoption of the minutes?
Chairperson, I move for the adoption of the minutes as a true reflection of what has transpired in the meeting.
Thank you very much, Honorable April. Any seconder? Honorable
Chair,
Hannah
I was
Winkler?
not part of the meeting, so can another honorable second?
Yes, I remember you were not well. Honorable Hannah Winkler, any seconder?
A second. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Is that the last set of minutes, Mr. Bolina, or do we have another one? SAT?
Yes, Chairperson, it is the last set of minutes that we have. So it means we have adopted all the three sets of minutes that were outstanding to the committee, Chairperson.
Thank you very, very much to all the members of the Portfolio Committee, honorable members of the Portfolio Committee, for having participated to this meeting, and want to thank all of you, including our officials, for having attended this meeting, and all the best to all the members and officials. And the meeting is closed. No, there's consideration. There's announcement. Sorry for that. I nearly forgot the last item, the announcement, and then we close the meeting. Thank you. Mr. Boltina.
Okay. Thank you, Chair. Chair, I'm not sure my system, I can't see these other icons. I know that it looks as if the former chair wanted to come in. Nozuko or Cindy, can you check, man, is the chair inside the meeting, or because he wanted to come in just to say goodbye to the Portfolio Committee members? Just check that for me, whether it is like that or not. Chair, the issue that on this announcement is what I wanted to just to indicate to the committee. So the details of what will be happening in Clarence, we will get those further details from the department, Chair. As we all know, the September is the tourism month, so that is kickstarting tomorrow, and then we will listen to what some of the activities that the department will be doing, and then we will see what are those activities, which one can we be able to participate on them, and all of that. And we will be guided by the commitments also of the Parliament as well, and the National Assembly, Chairperson. So that's all I wanted to just to indicate it to the Portfolio Committee, that we we are waiting for that invite from the minister when it comes, and it will be attended to it, Chairperson. That's all from our side, Chair.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Boltina. Also, I think on behalf of our committee, I would love to really thank our chairperson who was chairing this portfolio committee and who was also deployed to serve in to chair another committee, which is International Relations. We are going to definitely miss the chairperson, his creative mind, his ideas, the chairperson that was sharing the committee with integrity and dignity without any favor of any partisan, favoritism, an honest chair, and really we are definitely going to miss his presence in this committee, and we want to thank him for also being part of us as the committee member of the tourism. And on that note, I would like to close this meeting. Thank you very much, members, honorable members. The meeting is
correct. You're correct. SOR boss.
Thank you, Chair.
Long live the chair. We're gonna miss also our former chair.
Long live SOR Mahuba long live.
We also miss our honorable Mamuluk. Goodbye, and welcome our new chairpersons who we are going to elect. We don't know who it's gonna be, but I think we know who it's gonna be. We are going to really work together with her and hoping that we are going to have a very fruitful tourism committee. Thank you so much.
Recording stopped.